Alright, hey everyone. So big news today in the WNBA, April 28th, 2024, is the announcement from Candace Parker retiring after 16 seasons in the WNBA. And, a lot to talk about in this video in regards to, Candace Parker and her history and with ties with Pat Summitt. But first off, just to notice how here we are on the 28th of the month, and aces do have gematria value of 28. And of course, we are entering the 28th season of the WNBA, just like how it will be the aces 28th season as well. Something else that's noteworthy is noticing that Candace Parker was the #1 draft pick in the year 2008. So dropping those 2 zeros in the middle would look a lot like 28. And again, aces have a big history that I've talked about in the past with the Chicago Sky. A couple of years ago, the Chicago Sky were down 28 points and came back to beat the aces, and making it the largest comeback in WNBA history. And the leading scorer for the Chicago Sky at the time was Courtney Vandersloot, who has the February 8th birthday, 2-8. So definitely a lot of a lot of riddles with aces and 28. But I want to focus on how it's after 16 seasons that Candace Parker is retiring. And, just a quick article here. Nothing that I'm going to really point out, but I'm just pointing out that all this is happening today. April 28th is the day of her announcement. First off, just want to point out she went to Tennessee. She was a Tennessee Lady Volunteer. So that's who she graduated with, obviously coached by Pat Summitt. But in regards to 16 seasons, do recognize that Tennessee is the 16th state in order of statehood. They were admitted on June 1st, 1796. And also what's interesting is noticing that this 28th season will begin on May 14th this year. And today is exactly 16 days to the WNBA kickoff. So again, another perfect 16. And then last year, Candace Parker didn't play the entire season due to an injury, but out of the games she did play, she played a total of 18 games. And out of those 18, she lost 2, so she won 16 games last season that she was participating in. And just to note too, this comes off of across the timeline. That's where I pull all my stats. But you can see here that the last game was on July 7th, and even in the ESPN article up here, they state that she appeared in her final game on July 7th. So, perfect alignment for that. Even if you want to point out here, so she's a 3-time WNBA champion, right? So she won with the Los Angeles Sparks back in 2016. She won with Chicago Sky in 2021, and then most recently with Las Vegas Aces in 2023. But, the first one definitely stands out to me, and so that's what I'm going to be talking about mostly in this video, is about the 2016 championship, hence 16 again. But so yeah, that's what I want to talk about, especially in relation to Pat Summitt, and so we'll get to that. So her late coach, Pat Summitt, she died at the age of 64, but this happened back in 2016. So just about 4 months before Candace Parker wins the WNBA Finals with the Los Angeles Sparks, Pat Summitt had died. And, for another 16, they said that she had Alzheimer's disease, and even Alzheimer's has the gematria of 53, and 53 is the 16th prime number. But, and again, she was the coach for Tennessee being the 16th state in order of statehood. And also notice that she dies at the age of 64, and the most common name that she went by, Pat Summitt, has value of 64. And do note back then that there were also 64 teams in the NCAA tournament, which now, present day in 2024, there are 68. But I mean, for her to be, the winningest coach in D1 history, yeah, that's a big deal. And stating here, she won 8 national titles in her 38th seasons at the university. Interesting with the 8 national titles, because here we're going on 8 years since her passing in 2016. And then notice how, she coached for 38 seasons, because if you didn't notice up here, or if I didn't point it out, Candace Parker is currently 38 years old right now. So definitely these numbers are standing out in relation to each other. So here we have the 2016 WNBA finals between the Los Angeles Sparks and the Minnesota Lynx. And, with Candace Parker being 38 years old right now, and then how back in 2016, Pat Summitt had died after 38 seasons, right? In Minnesota, definitely screams 38, because we know, which I think I already have it on my calculator here, Minnesota equates to 38. So, like, perfect team for them to have been facing after the death of Pat Summitt. And then what else is interesting this year, 2024, coming up pretty soon, preseason starts on May 3rd. Again, 5-3, almost like 53 being the 16th prime. We have the very first 2 games start at the same time. But it's also interesting to me that it's the Chicago Sky playing against Minnesota Lynx. Although it's not the LA Sparks playing the Lynx, but still, Chicago Sky is where Candace Parker got her second championship, title with the WNBA, and she's from Chicago area, like her hometown. But they're playing the Minnesota Lynx, kicking off the preseason first day on May 3rd. So that definitely stands out. And here, I want to point out too that the 2016 season was the 20th season of the WNBA. So 8 years ago, like how today is the 28th season, but the 20 stands out a lot because 20 and 38 go hand in hand with the word death, right? Death equates to 38 and 20, just like RIP, 38 and 20. And, even more with a death relation, Los Angeles, California has the 118, like Los Angeles Sparks. Pat Summitt has 118. And then in the Jewish cipher, death equals 118. And one other thing I wanted to point out is the Los Angeles Sparks actually had a game the same day that Pat Summitt's death was announced on June 28th, 2016. And Candace Parker, made headlines and news and stating how she wrote the word rebound on her shirt or on her shoe. And supposedly, I guess that was like a thing that Pat Summitt was a big, obviously everyone needs to rebound in order to get the ball, but she said that she did that for Pat Summitt, wearing orange Adidas shoes and writing the word rebound on it. And what do you know, like rebound equates to 38, and even Adidas equates to 38 and 20. Again, this was the 20th season of the WNBA, and this was after Pat Summitt just died after coaching for 38 seasons. Another thing I found interesting was just the fact that, Pat Summitt died on the 28th of June, and then here we are again on the 28th of April, and Candace Parker's retiring at the age of 38. Anyways, I just want to point out in the WNBA finals, the game 5 where they put it away, she scored 28 points in that game. And Even just looking at the day that Pat Summitt was born, she was born on a 28 date numerology. And if I didn't list it, Pat Summitt's birthday is the same as Donald Trump, different year, but June 14th, 1952. But if you break it all down, it equates to 28. But then Candace Parker, what's interesting about her date numerology, her birthday being April 19th, 1986, that breaks down to 38 date numerology. So I mean, just seeing how they both have that 38, 28 in their day that they were born, it definitely stands out. And then here I want to point out the last WNBA finals, the last NCAA tournament that Pat Summitt won, which was also the last one that Candace Parker was in on, was back in 2008, and that was against Stanford Cardinal, and this happened on April 8th, 2008. And notice that it kicked off on March 22nd, like 322. Tennessee Lady Volunteers has gematria of 322, like the date it began. But yeah, I just want to point out that there were 64 teams back then. That was the Lady Volunteers' 8th title, as well as it was Pat Summitt's 8th title. But then notice that they won with 64 points. The score was 64 to 48, and 48 being like the date that it concluded, April 8th. But I mean, just for Pat Summitt, that being her last championship win, right? And I just find that interesting with, her name gematria, and then the age she ends up dying. So I'm sure there's there's more in depth to this. I haven't really ever looked into it, but I've always wondered about it, because even with just Candace Parker alone, how she references back to Pat Summitt all the time, and she tears up every time she talks about her, which makes me want to, let me see if I can pull it up. Because you should see the way that right here. I'll see if I can get this loud enough. But if you haven't ever seen after the 2016 finals, after the win, hold on. Here we go.
Well, the hugs are continuing here as Neko tells Candace Parker that this win is for you. Candace.
Good job, Candy.
All the personal and professional disappointments this year. What does this moment mean to you?
This is for Pat. This is for Pat.
Alright, so I think she ended up talking a little bit more after she gained herself, but just to see how that was what was clearly on her mind and stuff, it just really makes you wonder how these alignments with these deaths around these star athletes and stuff, and especially with it coming down to the number 38, and 38 being a big death number, let alone we know murder equates to 38 as well. And I did have, in case you're new here and you're thinking oh my god, this girl's a whack job and such, but these numbers aren't by accident, right? They've been observed by many people now, and why else would there be a movie called Murder by Numbers, where on even the movie poster here they changed the E to a 3 in both B's here, by and in numbers, they change to 8s, like 38, 83. Just like, again, the word murder equates to 83 and 38. And in this movie, the main star is Sandra Bullock, and even Sandra Bullock has gematria of 83. But yeah, and then you also have the yeah, this movie came out, yeah. Anyways, with all the 38s and 83s in regards to death and murder, it's interesting, right? Killing has the 38. In regards to the 28 and 64, let's see. The word kill equates to 64, just like, again, Pat Summitt died at age 64 on the 28th. I mean, I don't think these are coincidences, but especially with something is deeper here with this. And think too that it just makes me, I'm just thinking about the championships of Pat Summitt where it's listed here. I keep skipping it, I guess. Right here. So how they state how she won 8 national titles in her 38 seasons. But I mean, even from 2008 to, so 2008, her last championship win with Candace Parker. Then 8 years later in 2016, Pat Summitt dies, but then Candace Parker gets another championship. You know, those 8, like, and talking about 16 with Tennessee and how it's been 16 seasons for Candace Parker. You know, it's like the digits 8 and 8 equal 16, you know. It's all number ritual. And so that's what I'm getting at. But I had to share this because it's not only just about Candace Parker retiring after 16 seasons, playing for the 16th state in order statehood Tennessee, and having won her first championship in 2016. I mean, there's definitely history with what led up to that 2016 championship for her. And then, you know, I could say some more things about on a different subject other than Pat Summitt. It is interesting with the Chicago Sky, how she won in 2021. I feel like there's some kind of relationship with her and Brittany Griner, because Brittany Griner's first WNBA debut was against the Chicago Sky. And then also Phoenix Mercury, who Brittany Griner plays for, lost to the Chicago Sky in the 2021 WNBA championship. And then here, just right after that loss, then just months later, before the next season began, then that's when Brittany Griner gets detained in Russia and all that war talk and such. But it's interesting to notice how, you know, Candace Parker went from the Los Angeles Sparks to the Chicago Sky before she won that championship too. Like, and just think, like, Sparks, Sky, like sparks in the sky, and then here all this happened with Brittany Griner. And then it's kind of just whatever that she was on the team last year, yeah, but I mean, she didn't. I mean, she's part of the team, so she won the championship last year with the Aces, but it didn't seem that big. Like, I don't see the big relation with her. Maybe they just wanted her to get 3 championships or something because she wears number 3. And yeah. But I'm still brainstorming on what, because all these are usually clues into telling, you know, yeah, they're just hints for the upcoming season, or who knows. But something's here with it, especially with the 28 being involved. But anyways, I'm just brainstorming right now. That's pretty much all I had to say. but definitely RIP to Pat Summitt. Alright, see ya.